So the government is shut down. Veterans cannot get benefits. Kids are losing food assistance. Federal workers are not getting paid. But ICE is running at full capacity, sweeping people off of the streets, including American citizens. And private prison companies, they're getting paid $7.9 million per day, every single day of the shutdown. While Americans are being swept away, a-holes like Benny Johnson want you to blame immigrants. But there's one fact that makes his entire shutdown spin crumble. Follow the money. See who's actually profiting. And we're going to get into exactly that because today, literally today, Benny Johnson shared videos celebrating Walmart banning food dyes and women being forced to give birth because every life is a gift. That's what he's sharing in his little Instagram right now, while supporting policies that cut healthcare for millions of children, while cheering on a shutdown that strips nutrition away from kids, while ICE sweeps American citizens off of the street and locks them up in for-profit prisons. But sure, Benny, every life is a gift, as long as that life doesn't need food, healthcare, or constitutional rights, or due process. This man is dumb as dog, and we're about to break down how he contradicts everything he stands for and show you exactly why this immigrants' fault thing isn't it. Because paper trails reveal who's actually earning from all of this. Spoiler, it's not immigrants. It's private prison corporations making billions off of a deportation machine that's sweeping up our neighbors and American citizens during a government shutdown. But first, let me tell you who Benny Johnson actually is. I didn't even know who Benny Johnson was until a conservative show booker slid into my DMs asking me to join him for a segment. Honestly, most people in my world haven't heard of him either, unless you're the type to hate women, hate yourself, or the most culture you've ever experienced is a $2 hot dog at a gas station. Okay, so for those lucky enough to not know Benny, Benny Johnson is what happens when a Reddit comment section gains a little traction, when a man discovers hair gel and gets a little media contract. He was fired from BuzzFeed. He was fired for plagiarism, which means Benny couldn't even write 15 dogs that look like their owners without stealing somebody else's work. That's impressive. That's a new level of lazy. Now he runs a show where he points at things and yells. That's it. That's the whole format. Point, yell, repeat. Look at this thing. Are you mad yet? It's like if Fox News and YouTube had a comment section baby that never learned any sort of critical thinking skills. But here's what really gets me about Benny. He's every loser guy from your high school who got so drunk on the tiniest bit of power that they became small town cops or mall security guards, high off of the thrill of finally having the authority over somebody. You know the type. Peaked, maybe never, sort of kind of maybe left their Iowa hometown for a more racist version in Florida, got a badge, and suddenly thought they were running the world. Except for Benny, he got a media platform, unfortunately. And now he uses it to tell you what he's angry about while he cashes checks for it. He's the same racist loser bully who never grew up, just found a way to monetize his inadequacy. And today, after posting about how every life is a gift, he got something truly spectacular. He got some takes on the government shutdown, and we're going to get into that. Specifically, why it's happening and who's to blame. But first, let's talk about why every life is a gift and what that actually means for losers like Benny Johnson. Because Benny Johnson is proudly one of those pro-forced birth guys. Every embryo is sacred. Every fetus must be protected. Life begins at conception, and women must be forced to give birth because every life is a gift. Unless that life is born, because once you're actually here and breathing and needing things like healthcare, food, housing, suddenly Benny's got a lot of opinions and how you don't deserve any of that. Let me be very clear about why every life is a gift and what that actually means to Benny. It means you will be forced to give birth, even if you were raped, even if you are a child, even if carrying the pregnancy will destroy your body. You will give birth because Benny and people like him have decided that your body belongs to the state. But the second that baby is born, the second that gift needs healthcare or formula, you're on your own. Because helping children is socialism. Because making sure mothers have support is government overreach. You force women and people who can experience pregnancies to give birth, and then you cut healthcare for them and for their children. And then you blame immigrants when those families are struggling. That's Benny Johnson's politics for you. It's not pro-life. It's forced birth plus abandonment. It's every life is a gift until that life needs a little something. And it's a scam run by a guy who's been fired for being too lazy to write his own BuzzFeed articles. And today, this guy who just posted about how every life is so precious has thoughts about the shutdown. So buckle up, because what we're about to watch is Benny. And Benny tells us who to blame while his party literally sweeps American citizens off the street and hands billions to no-bid contracts to private prison companies who are making record profits warehousing human beings. Let's roll to the clip.
Okay, so President Trump started off his round of trolling his enemies into doing what he wants. Now, the enemies here are, of course, congressional Democrats, and the congressional Democrats want to give criminal aliens, illegal aliens, health care. That's what they want. They're shutting down the government because of it. This was proven demonstrably today in a very short statement by J.D. Vance. Here it is.
Let's step back for a second, because I think it's important for the American people to realize that the far left faction of Senate Democrats shut down the government because we wouldn't give them hundreds of billions of dollars for health care benefits for illegal aliens. It's actually not even all Senate Democrats. I was really gratified to see that a few of the moderate Senate Democrats voted with Senate Republicans last night to keep the government open. This is basically Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, he's worried he's going to get a primary challenge from AOC, and so he's shutting down the people's government to give in to sort of the left-wing coalition and their party. And it's craziness, and people are going to suffer because of it. I mean, people who benefit from low-income food programs are going to suffer because of this. If you're flying today, I hope, of course, you arrive safely and on time, but you may not arrive on time because the TSA and the air traffic controllers are not getting paid today. Our military is not getting paid today, starting today. And obviously, the longer this drags on, the worse that it is for the American people.
So Democrats are simply saying, we want to give criminal aliens free health care. And we're going to shut down the government because we want to give criminal aliens free health care. Now, we have a handy chart here of government spending, and you can see how the government is spending our dollars. And you can see that the vast majority of spending for American healthcare dollars is actually in Medicare. There's a major problem already in Medicare. Look at this. Everyone's like, wow, we spend so much on Department of Defense. It doesn't even register, by the way, the Department of Defense, as like the top expenditure line. Unreported data is right here, but we have interest, Medicare, and health care. Then you have education, which is 2%, Social Security, which is like 6%. That needs to be obviously really fixed. But Medicare and health care are a whopping 30% of the federal budget. And Democrats want to put more criminal aliens into those buckets in order to balloon those payments that we already cannot afford. So none of the data makes sense. None of the data on federal employment makes sense. None of the data here on healthcare makes sense. Our own banners that we have for our ads don't make sense for our partners. None of it makes sense. I'm fine with it. Okay, I'm fine with it. I don't want, obviously, for my children to inherit a non-functional country. And the way that happens is you hand your child $100 trillion in debt, because every illegal that comes to our country, you give them goodies to come in. And you promise them they'll get free health care when they do it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly the line in the sand that must be drawn.
Okay, first. Okay, Benny, yes, good job looking at a chart with data. That's a start. About 30% of federal spending does go to healthcare. You know why? Because people get sick and they can't afford to get better. And instead of fixing it, Republicans are gutting it. So let's do the math, Benny. The Republican passed one big beautiful bill. It slashes over $1 trillion for Medicaid and CHIP. That means 10 million people lose coverage. Not just illegals, Benny. Actual Americans, your neighbors, rural hospitals, closed. Facing a $90 billion shortfall in the budget. Seniors and disabled folks who rely on home care, cut. Good luck. Kids who can't afford basic treatment, done. These aren't government handouts. People pay into these benefits. And let's go back to those kids for a second. The gifts. Those kids you forced people to birth. Those kids you said had to be born no matter what because every life is a gift. Yeah, those kids, you cut their health care. You forced them to be born and now you're refusing to keep them alive? Gross. Every life is a gift, Benny, huh? Except when that gift needs antibiotics or asthma medication or diabetes treatment or a doctor's visit. How radical. Meanwhile, you're screaming about goodies. That's what you call healthcare now? That's what you call keeping children alive? Real bold from a guy who's clearly never had to choose between a prescription and rent because he's always tumbled forward in a system built for him. And now you want to blame undocumented immigrants for the debt while your party hands out tax breaks to billionaires to appease their donors and lights entire agencies on fire? No, Benny, your kids are not inheriting a broken country because poor people got health care. They're inheriting it because you support people who are tearing it apart on purpose to profit the chaos. Let's roll a second clip because it's even worse.
President Trump has a spectacular way of getting what he wants from very bad actors. Remember, President Trump trolled his way into China by calling Xi Jinping Winnie the Pooh. He trolled his way into peace with North Korea by calling Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man and saying that his little red button doesn't actually work. President Trump is the troll master of the universe, and he's getting his way on this one well, we've just used the data to back all this up, but Trump is using memes. This is President Trump's first meme that he used to troll Democrats, and we have the newest, spiciest meme coming up in just a moment. But here's Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. I don't think this is AI. I think this actually really happened. I'm not sure. I think this is directly from the CNN
There's no way to
feed.
sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
So Chuck Schumer, not happy about that. Chuck Schumer was totally triggered along with Hakeem Jeffries. And instead of responding to this with, like, I don't know, their own meme, instead of engaging in meme warfare, instead of, like, realizing that this is a tactic that Donald Trump is using to humiliate them because they are and prove that they are actually just wanting to give criminal aliens healthcare in systems that are already broken, that we can't even afford already, to give further incentives to incentivize future Democrat voters to come here and vote in fealty to the Democrat Party. The gig is up. They've been exposed. And there's not a single American that can look at the data and say, this makes sense, whether it comes to federal employee compensation or whether it comes to Medicaid and Medicare. Absolute and total bankruptcy.
Benny, be so for real. You're hyping up Trump as if he's going to meme America back to greatness. Let me tell you about the real world, bud. Federal workers are being fired by the tens of thousands. Military personnel are working without pay. National Guard troops are being deployed into American cities, and they're not getting checks. And what are they doing? They're guarding the Whole Foods. Agencies that serve people are shut down. Agencies that sweep people up and lock them up for-profit prisons, fully operational. And while you're posting about every life being a gift and memeing about the shutdown, Trump's using his team to fire civil servants permanently. They've said it out loud. Russ Vought, the architect of Project 2025, your boy, has wide authority under this shutdown to reshape a federal government, our federal government. And what's your party's proudest move? Telling 2 million workers to resign within a week. Now, 1,500 of them have lost their final paychecks. You think that's funny? Those are people's lives, Benny. I thought life was a gift. You think this collapse is about the big, beautiful bill? The big, beautiful bill never even made it through a full vote. But you know what did? The budget your party passed. The shutdown the GOP caused. The healthcare cuts your party celebrated. You're out here posting about every life being a gift and memeing about trolling while actually families lose coverage, jobs, paychecks, while people are forced to give birth without Medicaid. While kids you said were gifts don't get healthcare, don't get meals. This isn't a joke. It's violence. This is disgusting. People are dying. But here's the one fact about Benny Johnson's entire shutdown spin that just makes it all crumble. While the government is shut down, while veterans can't get their benefits and kids are losing nutrition assistance and federal workers aren't getting paid, ICE is still running at full capacity, still kidnapping and stealing people off of the streets, including American citizens. And the private prison companies getting paid to warehouse these people, they're getting their checks on time every single day of this shutdown. This is not about immigrants. We're not that dumb. It's about profit. And the paper trail proves it. Let me show you what this actually looks like right here in LA.
For your safety, ma'am.
Let me go. I'm an American. I was born here. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. I didn't. You told me. You told me I had white stuff on my mouth. You told me I had white stuff on my mouth. And you told me to get it out. Let me out.
That's crazy. Not them blocking out their license plate.
Call my family. Call my family. Call my family. Call my lawyer. Call my family. Call my lawyer. Call my family. Anybody there? Anybody? Okay, my name is Rachel. My name is Rachel Simon. I was there to fix it. I was born here. They are brutalizing me. Please.
Métete. Cierra la puerta.
I didn't do anything. I don't want to let our people like this. Let go. Let go. Let me go. Let me go.
Que cierres la puerta. Cierra la puerta. Tu puerta, ciérrala.
You know, I don't need to see any more videos of neighbors screaming out in agony because they're being ripped away from their families. I was born here. That's what she's screaming. I'm a U.S. citizen as she's being grabbed by ICE agents in Culver City. There's terror in her voice. Her family's watching helpless. That's happening right now. That's what a gift people are. That's what essential law enforcement looks like during this shutdown. Benny's memeing about it. That's what happens when you build a for-profit deportation machine. American citizens are being stolen off the street. Those gifts Benny claims to care about, the for-profit prison system running ICE's detention center, here's the paper trail Benny doesn't want you to follow. Nearly 90% of ICE detention facilities are run by private prison companies, not by the government. Private corporations, for profit, they're making money off of this. It's no wonder. Meanwhile, humans are suffering, and in many states, they're doing indentured servitude. They are working as slaves. The two biggest, CoreCivic and GEO group, are now making historic, unsurprisingly, record-breaking money right now. Let me give you the numbers. 180 detention facilities, internment camps, are currently used by ICE to warehouse humans and hold them in detention and force their suffering. No due process. The vast majority are operated by private companies on government contracts. CoreCivic CEO told investors in May, investors, never in our 42-year company history have we seen so much activity and so much demand for our services as we are seeing right now. Are you kidding me? The GEO group reported the highest level of ICE utilization in our company's history. Their revenue from ICE went up 17% in one quarter alone. These are companies that are getting paid $165 per person per day. Let me break down that business model for you. The more people they lock up and detain, and the longer those people stay imprisoned, the more money they make. It's no wonder. Right now, ICE has 47,000 plus people in custody. That's 7.9 million per day going to private prison companies every single day, including during this government shutdown. That's 2.88 billion per year just at the current detention levels. And we know it's going to get worse. They're not done here. But Congress, they just gave ICE 45 billion to build more detention centers. The goal is to expand to over 100,000 beds for way more people to be imprisoned. That would be over 16 million per day. Per day. Nearly 6 billion per year going to private corporations whose entire profit model depends on keeping beds filled with people they stole off the streets or from their home with no due process. The shutdown that only shuts down services for you. Here's how that scam works. When the government shuts down, about 750,000 federal employees are furloughed. It's already happening. Veterans have to wait for benefits. Kids lose WIC nutrition. The CDC halts disease monitoring. Federal workers miss paychecks, but ICE, out of about 21,000 ICE employees, only 17% would be furloughed. The rest keep working. They get their little bonuses, keep arresting, keep imprisoning people, keep stealing humans, keep filling those for-profit prison beds. Because why? Because ICE just got $170 billion in separate funding through that one big beautiful bill. That's more money than we spend on every single local and state police department in America combined. And 45 billion of that is specifically for detention, for internment camps run by private companies. Not processing, not lawyers, not hearings, just locking people up for profit and the thrill. So while Benny's posting about how every life is a gift and making memes about the shutdown, private prison companies like CoreCivic and GEO groups are getting paid $165 per person per day, every single day, shutdown or not. The shutdown doesn't stop the money flowing for the for-profit prisons. It only stops the money flowing to help you, to feed kids, to provide health care. Americans are being swept up to fill for-profit prison beds and ICE quotas. The New York Times just documented at least 15 U.S. citizens have been arrested or detained since January by ICE agents who straight up ignored when they said, I'm American. And ICE agents aren't required to document when they stop citizens. So it's at least 15. That's just what we know. The real number could be hundreds. These are American citizens, those gifts Benny came to care about, being swept up to fill for-profit prison beds. Let me walk you through what's happening while Benny posts about Walmart and forced birth. Kenny Ambrosio, 18 years old, born in West Palm Beach, Florida, on his way to work when Florida Highway Patrol pulled them over. When troopers learned that others in the car were potentially undocumented, they started pulling everyone out. Kenny was recording, repeatedly saying, I am from here. The trooper's response to this American citizen, you've got no rights to be here. You're illegal, brother. They held him for 6 hours. During the government shutdown, this keeps happening. ICE keeps sweeping. Private prison beds keep filling. Companies keep getting paid. Jason, 29 years old, born in California, runs an auto repair shop in Montebello. Mass agents with guns drawn burst into his business without identifying themselves in mask. They wrestled his business partner. They beat him to the ground, who is also a U.S. citizen. They held him at gunpoint as he was on the ground being beaten. Court records say these agents repeatedly asked Gavidia whether he is American, and they repeatedly ignored his answer. I'm American. His partner, Javier Ramirez, was thrown in a van driven around 4 hours, taken to a for-profit detention facility. He didn't get to call his family for 3 days. 3 days. A U.S. citizen working at his own business, generating profit for a private prison company. Homeland Security claimed they assaulted officers. Jason was never charged. The charge against Javier was dropped. Security footage shows no assault. They made it up to justify sweeping American citizens for profit because they are racist. George Ramirez, 25, a U.S. Army veteran, trying to get to work when he got caught near a protest. Federal officers tear gassed the crowd. They broke his windshield. They pepper sprayed his face. They arrested him. He told them, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm an American. I'm a veteran. I didn't do anything wrong. They held him for 3 days for being Latino. No phone call, no due process, no lawyer. A veteran. During a shutdown where military personnel aren't getting paid, ICE had the funding to staff and hold an American for 3 days to fill a for-profit prison bed. Every life is a gift, unless that gift is a veteran who needs his constitutional rights respected. In August, a 15-year-old U.S. citizen with developmental disabilities was sitting in a car with his mother outside a high school in LA. His cousin was registering for classes. Federal agents surrounded the car at gunpoint for a 15-year-old. They handcuffed a 15-year-old disabled kid. Fucking loser. I can't say that word. Sorry. Losers. Big losers. During that shutdown, this is what stays funded. This is what's essential. Handcuffing disabled kids at gunpoint to feed the for-profit prison system. Julio, 54 years old in Chicago, he was out looking for work, handing out resumes to local businesses in Berwyn, Illinois. He walked out of a Jiffy Lube and ICE officers approached him. They handcuffed him and threw him in a van without letting him explain that he was a U.S. citizen. He was held for 10 hours before they released him. Miguel, 33, in Houston. He was driving to work just minutes from his home when ICE agents pulled him over. They didn't tell him why he was being arrested, just that he looked like somebody they were looking for. He looked Latino. They handcuffed him, they put him in the back of their car, and they drove him to a parking lot where they kept him for over 2 hours. Department of Homeland Security, led by none other than Christy Dog-Killing Noam, later admitted he was temporarily taken into custody by mistake. Oops. They apologized for the confusion after driving an American citizen around handcuffed for 2 hours. Leonardo, also born in Florida, which is unfortunately a part of the United States, was working at a construction site in Alabama when immigration agents came for his brother, who is undocumented. Leonardo pulled out his phone to film, as you all should. He was standing several feet away. Agents beat him to the ground anyway, and they kept him handcuffed for hours, claiming his identity documentation was fake. Department of Homeland Security said he physically obstructed officers. No charges were filed because he didn't obstruct anyone. He was filming from feet away, which is a constitutional right, and you should all remember that we need to do that when we see our neighbors being stolen. More than a month later, at another construction site, agents confronted him. This time, they didn't handcuff him, but they questioned his citizenship again. They escorted him out and held him for at least half an hour. Leonardo said in an interview, "I cannot work in peace anymore. I am always nervous." He's traumatized. This is what the system does. It makes every American citizen afraid to exist in their own country. Follow the money. Follow the money. The for-profit prison paper trail. Here's where your tax dollars go during this shutdown, while Benny's memeing about the Trump administration and how they're handing out contracts. They're handing out contracts to private prison companies without competitive bidding. They're claiming compelling urgency to skip that normal process that's supposed to go to prevent corruption. GEO Group, they have a 15-year, $1 billion contract to reopen a facility in Newark that can hold 1,000 people. CoreCivic, multi-year contracts to reopen the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, Texas. A family detention center holding up to 2,400 people, including children. Yeah, we're building prisons for children now. Hooray! Family detention. Let's go. Every life is a gift. They're building for-profit facilities to lock up families with children. Every life is a gift, huh, Benny? Including ones you're locking up for corporate profit. And both companies have been major political donors, unsurprisingly. CoreCivic and GEO Group poured money into Republican campaigns and PACs. Now they're getting no-bid billion-dollar contracts while the government is shut down. That's the paper trail. That's what you can say in response to anyone who tries to challenge this. That's who's earning from all this, not immigrants. They're not transgender people getting abortions, private prison companies. Meanwhile, immigration courts have 4 million pending cases. 4 million. They got funding for 800 new judges over 3 years. That's a 14% increase in judges for a 400% increase in detention center funding. Do the math. They're locking up people, including American citizens, 4 times faster than the courts can process them, which means people sit in for-profit detention centers longer, which means CoreCivic and GEO Group are making more money. And to make the backlog worse, they fired 65 career immigration judges right before this enforcement surge. This is by design because the longer people sit in detention, the more their lives are ruined and the more money for-profit prisons. $7.9 million per day during the shutdown while veterans wait for benefits. The for-profit deportation machine. The acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, said this week he wants the agency to become as efficient at deporting immigrants as Amazon is at delivering packages. Quote, I'm going to read the quote. We need to get better at treating this like a business, like Prime, but with human beings. That's what's essential during this shutdown. Treating human beings, including American citizens, including those gifts Benny posted about, as packages. Sweeping them up, stealing them from their homes and off the streets and from their places of work and worship, and from immigration appointments, warehousing them in for-profit prisons. In Polk County, deep East Texas, the immigration detention center run by private company Management and Training Corporation is one of the top employers. The county judge, Sidney Murphy, said they receive a portion of the funds that ICE is paying. It's revenue for us. Entire communities' economic survival now depend on keeping for-profit prison beds filled. Private companies' stock prices depend on detention numbers. Politicians' campaigns are funded by these same companies. Once you build the for-profit prison machine, it's almost impossible to dismantle because too many people profit from sweeping our neighbors up, from stealing them. So let's bring this back to that one fact that makes Benny Johnson's shutdown spin crumble. While Americans are being swept away and stolen, nearly 90% of ICE detention facilities are run by for-profit prison companies. Here's another fact. CoreCivic and GEO Group are making $7.9 million per day, every single day of this government shutdown. Out of 21,000 ICE employees, only 17% are furloughed. The rest keep working. They keep sweeping. They keep stealing our neighbors, keep filling up those for-profit prison beds. ICE got $170 billion in separate funding that doesn't depend on the budget that Congress is fighting over. That's on hold right now. $45 billion of that is specifically for building more for-profit detention centers. This is only going to get worse. CoreCivic and GEO Group got no bidding for these billion-dollar contracts without any competition. Both companies are major Republican political donors. At least 15 documented U.S. citizens have been detained since January. ICE agents aren't required to track citizen stops, so the real number is likely in the hundreds or thousands. Immigration courts have 4 million pending cases, but only got funding for 800 new judges. That's a 14% increase to handle a 400% increase in detention. The administration fired 65 experienced immigration judges right before ramping up this enforcement. The longer people sit in detention, the more money for-profit prisons, the more money they make. That's the business model. These aren't opinions. These are facts. You can Google them. This is the paper trail. And this is what Benny Johnson, the mall cop with a microphone, the guy who never even peeked, the guy who gets off of the thrill of having power over somebody, this is what he doesn't want you to know. Republicans control everything. They've got every level of power. And now they're using it to try to force women to give birth because every life is a gift, while cutting healthcare for those children immediately after birth, or if not before. They're firing federal workers, shutting down agencies that serve the people, keeping ICE running at full capacity to sweep people up, including American citizens, and lock them up in for-profit prisons. And during the shutdown, mothers are forced to give birth and lose their Medicaid, and so do their kids. Kids you said were a gift, they lose their health care. Veterans wait for benefits. Federal workers go without pay. But again, for-profit prisons keep getting paid $7.9 million per day. American citizens get swept up and held for days. 15-year-old disabled children held at gunpoint in handcuffs. U.S. Army veterans held without phone calls. All while Core Civic and GEO groups celebrate record profits. The only thing that doesn't shut down is the for-profit prison system that makes money from stealing people from their streets and their homes. This is never about immigrants. The paper trail shows you exactly who's earning from all of this. Private prison companies making billions off of deportation and the deportation machine. So yeah, Benny, you posted today about every life being a gift, but you support policies that force birth, cut healthcare, and sweep up citizens, lock people up in cages for private corporations during a government shutdown. That's not every life is a gift. This is cruelty. And what happens when a guy who got fired for plagiarism becomes a drunk on the tiniest bit of power? The paper trail doesn't lie, Benny. Follow the money. See who's getting paid while all of our neighbors are getting swept up. This is ridiculous. Keep going. Record profits during a shutdown. Don't fall for the spin. Don't fall for this loser guy who spent his entire career pointing at things and yelling. The facts speak for themselves. And if you've enjoyed this video and believe families belong together, please give this a share. Follow me at I am Lauren P across all social platforms and leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to hear more of next. We'll be back tomorrow.